now want to look at the distance between 2 points. We know that if we have a point A, x1, y1, and B, x2, y2, the distance between them is given by the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. But where exactly does this formula come from? Let's consider two arbitrary points A and B, and I'm going to draw the line segment between them. What I'm actually looking for when I say the distance is the length of this side right here. I want to find the length of this segment. And to see where this formula comes from, we're actually going to turn these points and this segment into a right triangle. So now we need to try to figure out the lengths of the sides of this triangle. On the bottom, this point right here on the left is given by x1, and the point right here on the right is given by x2. So in order to find the length, we would need to subtract these two. However, when I drew this picture, there was nothing unique about B being on the right and A being on the left. It could be switched, so it might be that we actually need x1 minus x2. So what we really need, the length of this, is the absolute value of x2 minus x1. If I look at the vertical side, this point up here is given by y2, and this point down here is given by y1. So once again, to find the length of the whole thing, we need to subtract. So we have y2 minus y1. But once again, we don't really know that B is above A. We don't really know that y2 is bigger than y1. It may be the case that we need y1 minus y2. So once again, we're going to absolute value this. Now we have a right triangle, and we know the two sides of the right triangle. So from here, what we need to do is start using our Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equal to c squared, or the length of the legs squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So the absolute value of x2 minus x1 squared plus the absolute value of y2 minus y1 squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared, or d squared. When we square a number, it's always going to be positive, so I no longer need these absolute values. Before it was to make sure the distance was positive. But if it's negative, once I square it, it's going to be positive anyway. And once I have that, I can take the square root of both sides. That way I have just a d on the left-hand side. And when I do that, I get d, the length of that hypotenuse, is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we now have our distance formula. Using the Pythagorean theorem, we were able to find the length of this line segment, which then gives us a way to calculate the distance between 2 points.